Hello, Adrian Plass here.
Yeah, and Bridget. Hello.
And no, it is a little bit significant, isn't it, that this is the 63rd Sounding the Shallows,
Yeah,
and we also did 63 daily ones.
we did.
So we're 126. Yeah. Something's got to change soon, I think. Otherwise, I don't know. Do you? We'll have to think about that. We'll have a think.
It's been such a strange week, hasn't it?
Oh, it's been actually one of those occasions when the news is more than upsetting.
It is.
Drains your
It is.
of optimism sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a short interlude, wasn't it? What with the Olympics and various other things, and the feeling that the vaccine was getting us out of things. And I think certainly I know that I probably did take my eye off the ball in terms of real news and world news for a while. COVID was all the time, and
then suddenly we couldn't avoid it. Fear, anger, hot, blazing debate all about the situation in poor old Afghanistan. And I actually, when I was thinking this morning, when I was thinking about this, that as usual, I don't actually know a great deal about Afghanistan.
No.
I've read two of those wonderful novels about Afghanistan,
The Kite Runner,
The Kite Runner, and the second one, which I absolutely loved, and they do give you a real insight.
But they're horrific as well.
Oh, they made it clear how difficult life is, but also how lovely the people there
Of course.
are. And I did look it up just so I knew, and I didn't really know. I knew it was bordered by Pakistan, but to the east and the south, and then to the west, there's Iran, and then these names that sound strange to us: Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan. Tajikistan.
Well, because
they were
all part of USSR, weren't they?
Were indeed,
they were connected with communism and Russia and oppression.
That's right, and China is to the northeast, and so it's mostly mountainous with apparently plains in the north and the southwest, and the capital, as most people now know, is Kabul. And I do know from reading those novels that there are some beautiful green parts of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So there we are. So much passion expressed this week.
Oh, all round. I mean, I think nobody could not be moved. What a strange sentence, but by the families talking about losing their sons or and daughters in Afghanistan, people who went out to fight and had so much hope that things were changing, and now wondering, was it all worth it? Which is a very tough thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, when you feel the sacrifices and the suffering do mean something, obviously
you can live with it more easily.
Possibly, I haven't experienced it, but possibly live with it, and a lot of disappointment about the advances that have been made, and they have, and whether they're now going to disappear, especially for girls and women who actually did have seen some changes.
Yeah, I mean, we know that it's likely to be a very, very horrendously bumpy ride, but something has happened in the spirit of some of these girls and young women. Voiced perhaps by Malala on radio, talking about the importance of hanging on to the knowledge that they're not rubbish, that they do have rights. Now, the punishments that might be happening in the near future are probably going to be horrific, but maybe, just maybe, something has happened that has changed. Do you think? I don't...
Oh, I think it has. I was hearing about a girl standing in the street today, or yesterday it might have been, holding a sheet of A4 with her views very clearly expressed on there.
Yeah.
And it does seem to reach a point with people who are oppressed where they say, whatever, I am me.
Yeah.
And I am not going to give up being me because somebody else tells me I've got to be somebody else. So I have enormous admiration for those people.
And we have to remember that too, don't we? If any of those people, if we meet them, if they are displaced and do come to the UK, that they are an individual who has tried to stand up for something and therefore had to escape.
Yeah.
We're talking about heroes.
Absolutely,
Sometimes when we
yeah.
see images of refugees, of displaced people, we sort of see a straggled mob, don't we? And forget that every single one.
Well, we've got a picture, haven't we, from a newspaper at the time when there were a lot of refugees coming, of a brother and son standing with his hand on his brother's head, with his mother standing, and the look on his face. I can hardly look at this picture of just despair. He's still standing straight. He's still going to do the right thing. And of course, on top of all these other things, everyone is angry, not everyone, but most people are angry with the nations that have not provided a suitable exit strategy and are just going. And maybe that's changing a bit. I don't know, but you see why people find it difficult.
But it's so complex, isn't it? As soon as we try and simplify it, I think of the cube. You love the cube, don't you? And
I think that's a slight exaggeration.
No, but you do. No, come on, you do. You always have. And that point where they say, you can simplify it, and one small thing is made easier. It's easy to take that word and kind of think, if we could just simplify the situation. Yeah. It never was simple, was it?
And of course, the Taliban will clearly say this is a success from their point of view, and Afghan citizens will have to wait and see what kind of success that is for everybody. You're right. The whole success and failure thing is very much less simple than we might think or try to make it, especially in this country.
And especially because you can only have the perspective of now, can't you? Of where you are now. We don't know. Maybe looking back in 10 years, we will see the success and failure of this differently. I mean, I remember, well, I don't know what you think about that, but I mean, there are times, aren't there, where it's easy to feel something is failing because things have gone wrong. But actually sometimes when you look back, you can see that there was some great value in the I mean, one of the things the soldiers have done out there is they've removed a huge number of mines.
Yeah,
that's something.
That's right,
I think apart from education and the other things. So some people won't die because of that. Yeah,
it's hard. It's so difficult to even think about it. But actually, I mean, certainly in the Christian world, whatever that is.
Yes, the Western.
The ideas of success and failure can be very confused. And I was remembering, again, thinking this morning, a place we knew. Won't say where it was, but it was a big new Christian project, and they'd done lots of work on the buildings where they were going to be. They were going to go out into the streets in this area and help people who had problems there. And there had been lots of prophecies. People had prophesied about the success of it, and they had, this might sound like nonsense to some people, but they had prayed around the dark corners of the buildings so that the devilish influence could be removed there. And then they were confident. They were impressively confident. And it failed very soon after opening. And I remember looking at the magazine associated with them, and there was a tiny little column saying that it had closed and the whole thing had opened, with the whole magazine being devoted to that. And it had gone. It had gone. And how you restructure that to make it into a success, I don't know. And not to be too miserable about all this, but we'll come back to something a bit more optimistic in a minute.
Yeah, why?
I also remember, as you know...
You had a fun morning.
Well, I couldn't help it. I suppose I got into a bit of a thing about this.
Yeah.
I also remembered that the occasions, there's one in particular I was thinking of, these church organisations who develop an amazingly spectacular presentation style, and then when it's kind of booming and rushing and lifting and making a difference, suddenly you discover that someone who's right in the centre of organising and doing this thing has allowed it to obscure the profound decay of that person's personal morality, and you sort of say things like, "Oh, for goodness sake." You know, if you're saying there's the power here and the majesty and all the rest of it, for goodness sake, you have to look at yourself. You have to look at what's happening.
Yeah, but again, it's the simplified thing. We want it like that. We want things to be straightforward and successful, and churches to grow, and us to feel we're doing something worthwhile.
Of course.
And actually, we're talking always about people, aren't we? People, us, people, people who are likely to screw up.
Yeah.
And as soon as you start making it bigger, and I think listening to some of the leaders, some of the army leaders, some of the other people, we may be, when I say have been led to believe it was going better than maybe it was, I think maybe we've wanted to believe that it was going better than it was.
Have.
And that a lot of people knew that it was going to be very, very difficult to train the Afghan army sufficiently to look after that country. The people who were there could see the difficulties. And we just wanted it to be a success and okay. I don't know. The other thing that struck me, Adrian, is that, I mean, there's a lot of talk, and there's going to go on being a lot of talk about whether it was the right time to leave and how it should have happened. And obviously it has screwed up pretty badly. But I was remembering, and this is so far removed from what we're talking about, but it's like a tiny microcosm of that. After we'd worked in our first job with children, and how long were we there? We were there for
3 years.
3 years, weren't we? And we knew that it was a limited time. You needed to get some qualifications. We needed to move on in our lives. Everything was the right thing, the sensible thing to do. But do you remember, I can't remember his name. Christopher.
I know what you're going to say.
And do you remember, well, if you know it, tell us, what was I going to say?
Well, I imagine, I may be wrong, I don't know what you were going to say, but I imagine you were going to say about him saying to me when I told him I was going to leave that if I loved him, I wouldn't go.
Exactly. And I think, exactly. And it was really painful to explain to a child that...
Especially
maybe,
a child who's had problems. And
if I'd, if you'd loved him, you would have stayed.
Yeah.
But actually knowing in your heart that wasn't the answer long term, and
it's
hoping
so
that the impact of your care for him would carry him forward. And
there was no exit strategy possible. There wasn't a good one.
No, there couldn't be.
You can't say, well, we'll meet up every week.
No.
Or whatever.
No.
That didn't happen.
No. And I feel that so many of the Afghan people will have that cry in their hearts at the moment. If you'd loved me more, you would have stayed. But of course, that must have been how the disciples felt.
Well, I was also, you won't be surprised to hear, thinking about that.
Oh, really? I'm sorry.
No, it's just fine. I think that's the way your mind tends to go. I was thinking about Jesus had an appalling exit strategy, didn't he? I mean, but when he died, they all thought that's it. That's the end of the. Yeah. The end.
And if you'd loved us, if you really,
you stay around.
Why would you not stay? Why would you not create the kingdom of God here on earth?
Yeah.
Why would you? Why would you do that?
Yeah, start a church.
Yeah.
Could have had a really nice church with people getting a lot from it, and it was so abrupt and so negative and just devastating. But
we're not paralleling it, are we? We're just
no, not at all. I'm just trying to look at success and failure.
Yeah.
I'm sure some people would have said about Jesus, and we think we've said it, who would have said, well, he healed me, and that's all I need to know about him.
Yeah.
And someone else would have said, well, he gave me hope in my life, and that's all I need to know.
Yeah, you imagine what the woman from Samaria would have said. Well, all I know is
yes,
when I
right.
gave him a glass of water,
yes.
I became a changed person, and so did my village.
Yeah.
And we only saw him for 3 days, but I know what I know. And it would have been a success, yeah.
But I suppose you have to say or assume that it was the right exit strategy for him.
Yeah.
Because
Well, of course.
he reappeared, if you believe that. He reappeared, and thousands, millions probably of people their lives have been changed. So you can juggle success and failure around that as long as you like, but it's not simple.
It's not. No, it's not. And it's not simple now, and the future is not going to be simple for these poor people living in Afghanistan.
No.
I don't know what to pray for, really. I don't know if you do, but just that.
Well, their hope was rooted in this, wasn't it? Many of the people there.
Yeah.
And
they saw another life.
Torn up.
And they saw another humanity. A lot of the people talking at the moment who were there talk about the connection with people. And I think people saw something different. Somebody who cared, a grown-up, somebody who would look after them, not somebody who would oppress them. And obviously for women, not somebody who would make them wear a burqa and take away all their rights. So those things are part of that country's memory, a way of being treated that was different.
I had one very trivial memory. I mean, it's self-centered, but I did a talk once to a group whose leader was a Christian and the rest weren't. And it was one of the worst experiences of my life. And I stood there trying to use the best of my material with my top lip sticking to my teeth. And I knew, and I can tell speakers will agree with me, when people are thinking, when is this man going to go away? So we can have a drink and talk about things.
Yeah.
And I got to the end and somehow managed to end it and sat down. And I thought, I don't know what I thought, something pretty wild. But I thought, this is awful. And it came to the end and everybody left, and one man just hung back and he leaned over and whispered in my ear, you'll never know what this has meant to me tonight. And it didn't kind of revive me totally, but I thought I would never have suspected that. And so I guess it's to pray for the best possible green shoots to come out, and the ones that are already there to be allowed to flower and all those things.
And maybe not let everything be crushed under blame. I mean, obviously there are people made mistakes. Of course people have made mistakes. It was an unruly and impossible situation. But of course things could have gone better. They could have gone better with the dealing with COVID. They could have, of course they could. But maybe at the moment, yes, to pray for things that have been planted in people, that they don't let those things die, and just that if there's anything any of us can do.
Well, maybe we should pray now.
Well, you pray then, Bear.
Father, it's so difficult to know what to pray for, but lots of wonderful things have happened there over the years, and lots of terrible things, and we know there's not an easy answer to that, but we would like to, is all we can ever do, is place the people who are waiting and wondering and suffering and whatever they're going through into your hands and say, as far as it is right and possible, could you look after them and keep them safe? And if there is a way for this to change, whether it's through a new government there or some other way, we'd just like you to make that happen. It would be so good.
And we do pray for the Christian church in Afghanistan and ask for some pretty amazing protection, please, Father God. Help them to feel safe under the shadow of your wing. That's all. Yeah, who knows?
That's all we can do. And thank you for being a resource that no one else is aware of if they haven't actually had any contact with you. And we hope more people find out that you are the ultimate resource. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Amen.
We've had a worldwide pandemic. Now we've got worldwide suffering on behalf of these people, I think. We are joined together as a world in caring in a way that I don't ever remember before. So maybe, just maybe, that's a good thing too.
Sure it is. Yeah. Chuck your prayers in the river with all the others.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next week.
Well, talk to you next week anyway.
Talk to you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.